Good evening and welcome to our monthly Foundation Matters webinar. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sandra Hempstead, the Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator for Zone 34, and I'll moderate the event this evening. Joining me, we're fortunate to have my colleague, Bernie Rydell, who's the Regional Rotary Foundation Coordinator from Zone 33. He will moderate the Q&A session. Tonight, we'll be discussing the Rotary Foundation's annual fund, and that's the fund that supports many of our grant projects at home and around the world. You'll hear from 3 clubs, everything from goal setting to strategies and ideas to promote the annual fund and Paul Harris Society. Let's welcome Patrick Eakes, our Rotary International Director for our zones 33 and 34 for the Rotary years 24 through 26. Patrick is a member of the Rotary Club of Crescent, North Carolina in District 7690 in Zone 33. At this time, I'd like to ask Director Patrick to offer his opening comments as well as an update about Rotary's response to our recent disasters. Patrick?
Thank you so much, Sandra. I appreciate that. And thanks to all of you who are attending our 3rd Foundation Matters webinar. It's great to share this time with you. I am excited about tonight's webinar content. The annual fund drives so much of what we do in Rotary, and it's the focus of most clubs and most individuals giving. As Sandra previewed, we will hear from representatives of 3 clubs that have had good success in their support of the annual fund. I love that this webinar's content is provided by club leaders. I've always found that peer-to-peer learning is a highly effective method to share information. Before we get to the main part of tonight's webinar, I want to provide an update on 2 recent storms that impacted several districts across both our zones. And more importantly, I want to provide an update on what our response has been since then. As you know, Hurricane Helene made landfall in the Big Bend of Florida, District 6940, on September 26. It proceeded northward before it stalled primarily over Tennessee and North Carolina mountains. The storm left over 250 people dead in Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Indiana. Additionally, West Virginia and Virginia had flooding, road blockages, and power outages. On October 7th, Hurricane Milton dealt a second blow to Florida, making landfall near Siesta Key in District 6960. That storm traveled across the state, causing flooding and wind damage, plus several tornadoes spun off the storm. And there are multiple communities in Florida that took serious hits from both Helene and Milton. Now, Rotary is not in the relief business as an overall organization, but many Rotarians answered the call of their communities and their districts. They addressed basic needs like food and potable water, provided generators, and took in strangers. Rotarians showed communities what the term people of action really means. Enormous amounts of recovery work will be required in several of our districts. The biggest challenges remaining are the Gulf Coast of Florida and the mountains of North Carolina. These recovery efforts will require months and likely years of dedicated service. So where do we start? Well, leaders in zones 33 and 34 worked together to set up an online disaster recovery fund on September 28th. That fund has already collected over $325,000 in cash. And we have commitments for almost another $500,000 of donations. These donations will be distributed to clubs and districts in the form of grants that will be used to supplement and amplify the efforts of Rotary volunteers and our partner volunteers. Every dollar we collect will be made available to help our clubs rebuild their communities. And yes, donations are tax deductible. Talk to your accountant to be sure. There's one additional story that I just have to share with you. Many of you will know the organization called ShelterBox. ShelterBox provides relief supplies and shelter to those who are displaced by natural disasters or conflict. They are working in war-torn Gaza, Bangladesh after the floods they had, and also in Grenada following Hurricane Beryl. And in case you're unaware, Grenada is part of Zone 34. They're part of our paired zones. I was on a Zoom call with the president of Shelterbox USA and the board chair of Shelterbox USA less than 1 hour before Hurricane Milton made landfall. And this was significant because the board chair lives in Tampa. He was in significant danger during our call. During that call, Shelterbox USA committed to provide a $100,000 challenge grant and additional supplies up to a value of $500,000. The first shipment of supplies from Shelterbox USA will arrive at my business tomorrow, and the second batch of supplies are due on Tuesday. They'll be batched by community and sent to the mountains of North Carolina to provide people with tarps, blankets, solar-powered lights, and similar items. And just over an hour ago, Shelterbox USA President Carrie Murray called me to say she had secured a gift of 1,000 comforters from a major manufacturer. They were meant for Bed Bath & Beyond before they no longer existed. But we're going to get those to my plant, get those distributed into the mountains of North Carolina. It's already very cold there. Now, Shelterbox USA's challenge grant and the donation of supplies are remarkable because they usually operate exclusively outside the U.S. So despite the incredible hardships experienced by many of our Rotarians and their neighbors, we're seeing the very best of Rotary through this crisis. And it's worth noting both the president and the board chair of Shelterbox USA are Rotarians. You can feel good about your donations going to a fund that is managed and distributed by Rotarians and distributed to Rotarians to rebuild their communities. And I know that together we will raise the $100,000 to match Shelterbox USA's new challenge grant. So that's a bit of an update on our storm response. It's been significant. It will continue to be significant, as I said, for many months. So now let's turn our attention to tonight's primary topic, the annual fund. Sandra, take it away.
Thank you, Patrick. And thank you for that update. It's so heartwarming to see in the face of disaster how Rotarians get together and take action. Our first speaker this evening on our topic of the annual fund is Dean Turner. Dean will be providing strategies on foundation goal setting. Dean's a member of the Rotary Club of Bluffton in District 7770. Dean, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sandra. I want to say good evening, and today I've been asked to share with you briefly the process which the Bluffton Rotary Club and District 7770 uses to set yearly goals for the annual fund share and for Polio Plus. So I'll be sharing part of a form they use, which will be very similar when we get down to talking at the end of this about how to enter this into my Rotary and your club's goals at the very end. Each district and club approaches goal setting differently. For some, it's kind of a goal driven, it's a bottom up that is driven by the clubs to begin with. And for others, it's a process which is initiated at the district level and the goals are set in conjunction with each club. District 7770 uses what I call a forward-thinking approach with its clubs. It works with its clubs by making an initial recommendation for each club's annual foundation goals or targets. As you're aware, all monies that are donated each year to the annual fund by clubs and individual members within the district are invested in the Rotary Foundation for a period of 3 years. And after 3 years, approximately 50% of those monies are returned to the district to be used during that oncoming year. And in District 7770, they set aside initially specific funds that go to support club service projects. They also set aside funds for community and environmental district grants, student exchange programs, larger combined grants, and to do some additional support for Polio Plus. Having each clubs set goals in this manner, I think is important to the district because it's then able to project the amount of funds it will have coming back in future years, which it can then use for those processes. District 7770 recommends goals for each club are then presented to the club, and they're developed based on the number of active members in the club and the club's prior year annual giving. That's where some of the negotiation comes in, because the giving in the clubs can change from year to year. There are special causes. We'll talk a little bit about that. But there are a few things I think as you sit down as a club or working with your district to set goals for your annual fund shares. First, you need to know your club members and their commitment to the community. Service to the community and community improvement and involvement is why people join Rotary. That should always remain a top priority. So it should be more than we're just giving to the annual fund. It's how does this benefit our community, and making sure that giving to the annual fund doesn't become just the primary focus of the club. Second, you need to be aware of special circumstances which may have impacted giving in the past or affect future giving. This may include having received special one-time gifts or special fundraising efforts by the club or district, which may or not be reoccurring. Those may include matching points campaigns that the district may initiate or the club may initiate. And then the club's goals also need to be realistic and ones the club's leadership believes can be achieved and will be supported by the club members. And finally, while goals should challenge the club, they're not set in stone. Goals are a target for the club and a way to plan for the future. Circumstances may change. In any given year, a club may exceed or fall short of their goals due to circumstances beyond their control. And we just finished talking about some of those circumstances that could affect us. So as you set goals, you determine what you're going to provide both to the annual fund or the other funds. I just want to share with you briefly then how to go in and enter those goals in My Rotary. So you first of all need to go to My Rotary. I've circled here, go to your account, sign in, and then we'll go to the next screen. What you should see is something like this that shows your club, the district. Go ahead and click on your club. And next screen. What'll come up will be several options. Click on goals. Once you click that, go to Rotary Club Central. Click on that. What you'll see here then is a screen, and we're going to be focusing for the foundation on increasing your impact. The next screen. One of the options you do have in there is you can look backwards or forwards on your goals so you can see what you did in the past, how successful you were. Here and then to the next screen, you have the option to edit. And so if your goals aren't there, you want to edit it and enter those goals. Next screen. In this case, these are the goals that have been entered for our club for this next year for the annual fund contributions and Polio Plus fund contributions. It also then gives you, can we go back just one real quick? It also gives you where you stand as of any given date. So you know what you need to do, what you've accomplished. I will also say that some of these, the giving, the achievement of it is affected also by individual members in your club that may give directly to Rotary. Some of that you do have control over, some not, but it's a very positive thing. So next screen. And then of the 5 goals you can enter in there, we do show plans for benefactors, major gifts, bequest society. We don't deal with those primarily on a annual basis. Those are something you work long-term with, but we do put that up there as a reminder for us that that's a goal for us to achieve, and that we are constantly looking for those opportunities. We'll have some points for discussion later or questions if you have them, which we can answer. Right now, I want to introduce you to past District Governor David Hare of the Rotary Club of Charlotte South Park from District 7680 in North Carolina. David, we are eager to hear about your strategies to promote the Paul Harris Society in your club.
Thank you, Dean. One of the most common questions I'm asked about the Paul Harris Society is, what is the difference between a Paul Harris Society member and a Paul Harris Fellow? To become a Paul Harris Society Rotary Club members and even Rotarians, simply inform Rotary International of their intention to give $1,000 or more cash annually to the annual fund, Polio Plus, or approved global grants. A Paul Harris Fellow, on the other hand, is an individual who has contributed or had a contribution made in his or her name of $1,000 or more to the Rotary Foundation. This contribution can be made over a number of years and can also include points. The important, could you go back a second, please? The important words on this slide are intent to contribute $1,000 or more every year. If for some reason members are unable to donate the $1,000 in any one year, this does not preclude them from being Paul Harris Society members. Next slide. As of June the 30th, 2024, there were just over 33,000 Paul Harris Society members in the world, being under 3% of Rotary membership. Those 33,000 donated $29.1 million to the annual fund, which amounts to over 20% of contributions just to the annual fund. The United States made up nearly 50% of total PHS membership in 2023-24, and outright contributions by all Paul Harris Society members amounted to over $42 million. Next slide. You can join the Paul Harris Society in a number of ways: online, email, or even calling Rotary headquarters. Joining the Paul Harris Society online is a very easy process. You'll see on the right-hand side here of the screen. You go to rotary.org PHS and click on join. All you will need, this is the very easy form to fill in. All you need is your Rotary membership number, email address, your club name and district. And then you click on submit. And once the applicant has submitted the form, which can also, by the way, be completed by the club president or the club foundation chair, if the member is not particularly comfortable with computers, he or she will receive a congratulatory email from Rotary International. Also, in recognition of membership, new members should be presented, preferably at a club meeting, a certificate of membership. A draft template is on the PHS website of that, and a Paul Harris Society chevron available free of charge from Rotary International. That's the chevron there on the screen and the template of the certificate. Next slide. And how do you fulfill your intent to give $1,000 annually? Well, you can donate $1,000 at one time or in several smaller amounts. And an easy way to do this is to enroll in Rotary Direct. For example, $85 a month, $250 per quarter, or obviously $1,000 per year. Donations can be made by check, credit card, or even from your IRA retirement account. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. Not quite ready to introduce Joe. A couple of tips for all foundation chairs online with us. Please check out the members of your club who are eligible to become members of the Paul Harris Society by viewing the Paul Harris Society report on myrotary.org and ask them if they'll be interested in joining. Also mention the society to new members like I did in my small club and immediately got 2 new PHS members. We now have a total of 8 Paul Harris Society members. That is 50% of our total membership of 16. Most important of all, I want to emphasize to you all how important it is to encourage all your members to donate to the Rotary Foundation, our charity, and hopefully they will become Paul Harris Society members. Don't forget to thank all of them for their contributions. Thank you, and I'd now like to introduce Joe Allen from the Rotary Club of North Gwinnett County in Georgia, where he is the Club Foundation Chair. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for spending part of your day with us on this very important topic. Go ahead and turn to the next slide. There you go. Just a little bit about us. We're a small club, and we're a new club as of last September. And we were not created in the normal way that most Rotary clubs are created. We were actually a merger of two existing very small clubs, the Buford Club and the Gwinnett Mosaic Club. Each of those clubs over the years had struggled financially, struggled with membership, a lot of burnout. The Mosaic Club that I was a member of was more of a social club than a Rotary club. In our community, we were lovingly called the drinking club that meets on Tuesday evening. And so in the truest, purest sense of the word, we were not Rotarians to the full extent that we could be. But since the merger, we now have 25 members, have many people visiting us, learning about Rotary, becoming a member, and have renewed interest from the community. We're still small, but we are mighty. Next slide. Co-president Chris Harden, who was the president of the Buford Club, and I understood that the club members of the new club had very limited understanding of really Rotary in general and the annual fund specifically. So last year we had a three-pronged approach to informing people. We called it educate, equip, and engage. And so the education part was we brought in various speakers from the district level to inform us about RI, about the foundation. We heard about everything from ideas to grow membership to Polio Plus. We truly, over those 6 months, covered the Rotary world because we kept that focus on educating people about what Rotary was truly all about. Plus, we did cut down on the wine just a tad bit since we're meeting during lunch. They educated us about Rotary and the global reach of our dynamic organization. Next slide. Secondly, we equipped our members with regular updates. New members were informed of the expectation to financially support the club and the annual fund. So from the very beginning, when we started talking to people, when they went through their orientation, we told the story of Rotary and we set those expectations. We would highlight things that were happening in the Rotary world through the Rotary magazine. And in this age of skepticism, we noted that the financial gifts were professionally managed. Our goal was to give them the knowledge so they see the importance and the benefits to their giving and to their involvement. Next slide. We share how their contribution to the annual fund supports foundation activities. These contributions come back, as you all know, come back to us through the district designated funds, which then can go to local and international projects. These dollars, again, we kept emphasizing, your money is coming back to your community. And so we've gotten the members more engaged with doing things where they're actually doing things hands-on, such as a new patio area near Annandale Village, which is a residential village in our community that serves adults with developmental needs. We partnered with a local elementary school and their foundation, the Ferguson Elementary School Foundation, and have purchased computers, technology, robotics for their emerging robot club, books. This year, we put in a request for funds through the grant process for playground equipment, and I'm happy to say we actually got that check literally this afternoon. And over the last several years, the annual fund giving and these grants, we've been able to put in almost $40,000 into that school, where that school would not have been able to have those resources had it not been for the annual fund. So this is a partnership that is truly making a difference. And we get our club members engaged and they're at the school so they can see how the students in the community are benefiting from their financial dollars. They're seeing where their dollars go to. This year we're doing, and last year also, we helped support financially a polio vaccination effort that was organized by the district. Again, reinforcing what Rotary is doing around the world. This year, we're working with a little larger club, the Loganville Rotary Club, to help support a global grant application for Canopy Life in Kenya. And these funds will be going to a water tower and tanks on the school's campus. Additionally, this year, we're nominating a young man who grew up in our community, who is currently attending West Point and wants to continue his graduate studies, and we're nominating him for a Rotary Global Grant. And he is going to be studying international law and human rights. So again, these are ways that for us to begin small, let our members see the true global outreach of the annual fund, and we're leading by example. And finally, we encourage you to help celebrate when they meet various milestones by the individual members. Celebrate with them, ask them, be engaged with them, because then when they feel engaged, they will then be involved and more than likely, more than happy to open up that checkbook a little less tightly. So that's our 5-minute story. I'm going to turn it back to Sandra, and I'm certain we'll be available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. And at this time, we have an opportunity for Q&A. And Bernie, my Regional Rotary Foundation coordinator colleague, is going to handle the Q&A. While you're putting your questions in the Q&A box, I do want to thank our 3 speakers, Dean, David, and Joe, and appreciate you being here and sharing your experience as club leaders. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bernie.
Thank you, Sandra. And yes, we're ready for Q&A. So as Sandra mentioned, there's still plenty of time to get your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom. But we do have a couple we can start with. And the first one looks like it's going to go to David. Are you ready, David? You must unmute, David.
Yeah, hit it, Bernie.
Okay, this one's for you. If you donate $1,000 per year via the annual fund, are you automatically a Paul Harris Society member? And are you also a Paul Harris Fellow?
The first part of the question, you are not automatically a Paul Harris Society member. You have to complete that form, which I showed you on the screen, going into the Paul Harris Society screen, and complete that saying that it is your intention to give $1,000 a year to the foundation. And the second part of the question?
So are you automatically a Paul Harris Fellow?
You do become a Paul Harris Fellow, yes, by giving the $1,000. That you do become a Paul Harris Fellow, but not a Paul Harris Society member.
Okay, thank you. This question goes to Dean. How do you encourage giving to the annual fund and Polio Plus?
Well, I think actually the description Joe out and gave of what he was doing as a club, we do that a lot. We just go back to basics, explaining what Rotary does, providing those as options. So they really understand the impact that's being made throughout the world. It's surprising. I did a program recently that looked at every one of the areas of work, and we began showing what Rotary was doing in each one of those particular areas. And there's tons of information online for that. So that was very easy to do. I've had a great result for that. It helps if you have members who have a family member that has had polio. We've had some of them come to speak. That really makes a difference. And then I think we do, within our district, we do a matching funds, our matching points campaign every year. And as a club, every other year in the spring, we do a matching points campaign. So we really try to keep this to the forefront for our members.
That's great, Dean. It's so important that they understand why they're giving, the why. So yes, very good. Let's see. This question is for Joe. You ready, Joe?
Sure.
Okay, here we go. Have you gotten any pushback from any members, especially new members, about the financial commitment?
Actually, we have not, because we've been telling the story about what's involved and again, setting those expectations. Now, when we initially had the conversation with some folks, I mean, there was some questions, didn't fully understand it. And again, I think that's where that education component of our outreach last year played a key role. So that as people began to understand what it was all about, and then seeing that those funds come back to us, again, fitting them locally, people then get it, the light bulb goes off. So, so far, knock on wood, we have not had any pushback. Everyone seems to get it.
You must be doing a great job of selling, huh?
Well, thank you. We're trying. Our issue is we need to get better at asking people. We have not had a major donor or anything like that, or I don't believe. I know past District Governor Scott's on the webinar with us, but I don't believe we've had a Paul Harris Society member. But the problem is we just haven't asked, and that's part of the game plan. Is we've got to get better at asking people to step forward, because we've got several in our club that I think if we ask them, they probably could step forward.
Yeah, the ask it's hard to do. The first one you do is really tough. It gets a little easier after you do the first one. All right, let's see here. Let's go back to David. Are there any tricks to encourage members to sign up for Rotary Direct?
The Rotary Direct, that's quite honestly, I haven't got any tricks up my sleeve to get them to sign up to Rotary Direct. Just to let them know that it exists, I think is the first big hurdle. A lot of regular members have no idea that you can just sign up for Rotary Direct and have your credit card or bank account charged each month. It's very easy, and you don't have to worry about it once it's set up. So tricks to get them, I would again just make them aware of Rotary Direct, and ask them if they be, the big ask, as Joe just mentioned, it's the big ask, whether it's membership or the foundation or Rotary Direct or Paul Harris Society. It's the big ask, and the vast majority of people you ask, it's amazing what positive responses you get.
You just have to get used to doing it. You got to get over that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, David. Here's one. Let's see. Dean, are you up for one?
Sure.
Okay, Dean. How are clubs receiving the recommended goals, and how are they changing them?
Well, first of all, I know Paul Walters is on here. He's our the district foundation director, so he may have a bit that he can add to this. But I know from our point, we've been our club's been kind of growing. We came out of COVID, and we have really seen some significant growth in our foundation, the annual fund giving particularly. Some of that came from someone managing an estate, and that estate monies are coming through on an annual basis. Partly it comes, I just, with the club president, have a discussion with the district foundation director. I don't want to see our goal raised so high that people feel it's mandatory and it's not coming from the joy of giving. Also, if the expectation is so high, they feel they're not dealing with the local community like they want to. So it's a balance. So I know Paul and I had that discussion, and I, I just simply told him, we're going to get giving, but it's going to come because there's a joy of giving when people have been educated as to what the service is, and there's something that they can see of value in the giving. I don't know how the other clubs have reacted. I just know how ours, and just to give you a sense, our goal right after COVID went up 30%. And that was kind of a shock. Now, I will say, and I've only been in the position 4 years, we have increased that every year, some, but our overall giving has been in the top 5 in the district for the last 4 years.
Yeah, you've had some amazing results. I think the key words that I took from that was the goals they come from the DRFC, but they
Right.
are recommendations. They come to you as a recommendation, and then there's a dialogue if necessary. Like you said, you talked to Paul and changed or didn't change. And I think that's a lot of people are afraid of a top down, but this is not so much a top down, it is a recommendation down. And then
Right, and that's why I use that wording on it, because it does come that way. We feel that we have to have a balance and understand what members want. They really want to see the things happen in the community as well. And once it goes to the foundation, it's kind of like, okay, where is that? And we spend a lot of time explaining just that very fact, and even annually showing what did we do in the community? What did we do with the annual fund? What was done with that?
All right, Joe, you've been off the hook here for a little bit, so let's get you back on stage. Here's a question for you. You said that most of the members knew very little about Rotary and the annual fund. How successful has the education been? On a scale of 1 to 10, where would most members fall today?
They were maybe at a 5 or 6. I think most of them may even know who Paul Harris is, which that may not have been the case a year or so
That's right.
ago. But I think by us continuing to focus on that, again, having those speakers and reminding people what Rotary is all about, that is what's that education is so important to move us from that social club of people coming together to, again, the people of action that we like to call ourselves.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, this is actually, I'm going to throw this out to the 3 of you. Let me see if you've done this before. Is there a great overview or presentation of the foundation available that they could use in their clubs? Anybody?
There's certainly for the Paul Harris Society a PowerPoint presentation which you can find under that PHS under myrotary.org and Paul Harris Society. You can scroll down and there's a whole list of questions and what is the Paul Harris Society, and a PowerPoint which anyone can use, whether it be the president or the club foundation chair or the Paul Harris Society coordinator in the district. You can use that as a presentation to your members.
There are
part of which you've seen tonight.
Thank you, David.
There are a number of prepared presentations out there. If you go just look under Rotary, or you can just Google it and deal with that. I know with mine, every presentation that I've done or whatever, we keep it within an open file in the club so anybody can look at it and see it. But I usually take that stuff that's out there, craft it to what I think the interest or the questions our club would have, because it may not be everything may not be pertinent that you'll find online, but you can usually edit it.
I agree with Dean. And also don't forget, Rotary.org. I mean, there is a ton of information. I am just amazed every time I go on the RI website to see what's there, the amazing graphics. I mean, they have really done an excellent job. So, for like our orientation, I pulled stuff off of that, cut and paste, and put it into a PowerPoint.
Exactly.
I agree. I do the same thing, Joe.
Rotary.org. There's a plethora of information out there. I think this is going to be the last question. As I look, I got 1 minute left. David, can you answer it in 1 minute?
I'll try.
Here we go. Am I required to give $1,000 before joining the Paul Harris Society?
That's an easy one, Bernie. You are not required to give $1,000 before you join the Paul Harris Society. All you're doing when you sign that or you send in that application is it's your intention to give $1,000 annually cash to one of the three areas. So certainly you do not have to give $1,000 up front to join as a Paul Harris Society member.
So
Is that under a minute? Sorry.
Excellent. That was excellent. You made that's great. Thank you very much. I think we're right on time. I'm going to turn it back to our moderator, Sandra. Sandra?
Thank you. And thank you to everyone for your presentations and for that Q&A. I do want to point out that in the chat box, we have Katie Leisner, who's our annual giving officer. She's very focused on the annual fund for both zones 33 and 34. She's pointed out that the PowerPoint Doing Good in the World with the Rotary Foundation is available, and I think there's a link in there, so that may help some of you who are looking for an overarching presentation about the Rotary Foundation. So as we conclude our call, I do want to let you know that we have recorded the call. You'll be getting an email with a copy of the recording and also the slides. I would also like to make sure that you acknowledge that we are asking you to set your club's annual fund goal in Rotary Club Central if you haven't already done so. And also to schedule a foundation speaker. I think we heard in all of the presentations today how important it is to set the goal and to have speakers and education for your club. November is Foundation Month, so it's a good month to focus on the foundation and set some speakers for your club. I would like to, well, first of all, thank you for attending today. I'd like to also point out that you can find all the information about our meetings. You can register for additional meetings and find the reference materials at the RI Zones 33-34 website under the foundation. You will also be able to go there to put in your results from the action items that we've had in each one of our calls. As you exit the webinar this evening, you will get a survey. It has 3 simple questions, and we really appreciate you answering that survey. The suggestions that you make each month are shaping what we do for the following months. So please do provide your feedback. Our next Foundation Matters webinar is November 21st at 6 p.m. And we'll be discussing the endowment fund then. So this concludes our webinar this evening. I appreciate everyone for being here. Thank you and have a good evening.